Hello all. So I'm watching this building Hitler's supergun, the plot to destroy London. It's so look, building a supergun, the plot to destroy London, and yeah, just a couple of things because you know I have an interest in this. You know, having family killed in both wars as soldiers, so. Anything I say, I understand from, you know, a family's point of view as well. These are the convoys, and if anybody wants to understand about evil, the convoy PQ-17, one of the Arctic convoys to Murmansk and Archangel, somebody gave the order for the naval escorts to scatter, and for the rest of the actual, I don't know how many, 20, 30, maybe more ships to scatter. I think there was only half a dozen that made it. The rest of them, unfortunately, are at the bottom of the ocean. Again, who's told them to scatter? These are the convoys. I feel really strongly about certain things of the war because we've been told a lie about it all. And I could talk to you for such a long time about it. But yeah, that particular convoy, PQ-17, it was a sacrificial event on a certain date, and a certain somebody in high-powered give the order for the Royal Navy to leave the convoy and to scatter. And I think out of X amount of ships, there was only half a dozen that made it into either Murmansk or Archangel. And the ones that made it in, very gallant captain, I believe, that helped a certain 3 of the frigates or of the supply ships, and yeah, very brave men. And unfortunately, a lot of them lost their lives in that particular convoy, and now sleeping at the bottom of the ocean because somebody somewhere said scatter, and nobody's ever been held accountable for that. So I just wanted to mention this because these are the convoys and all the Merchant Navy boys and our Royal Navy, you know, all of them, God bless them. You know, they've all been sent to war and all under an illusion, and lots of them laid down their lives and destroyed families, unfortunately, while the evil people at the top perpetrated, orchestrated, engineered and terrorised the people. That's right, people. Terrorise the people. What we have today is no different from yesterday. There is nothing new under the sun. They bombed us. We bombed them. Poor people bombing poor people. But the rich elite giving the orders. It's terrorism. It has nothing to do with warfare. Women, children, old men, old ladies on either side. All dying. For what? They're just dropping bombs willy-nilly. They don't care. It's just pure sacrifice, so they get the contracts to rebuild the cities after the war. Remember, to change the world at this time, you have to destroy the old. This is their mental philosophy. This is Aristotle, Greek philosophy. To build a new world order, you have to destroy the old. This was what this was all about. And so that's what the whole bombing thing was. Annihilate Warsaw, or, you know, loads of cities across Europe, leveled. So then the elite companies could go in, buy up companies for next to nothing, and then put in the infrastructure, the water, the gas, the electric, you know, put in the hospitals, put in all the administration buildings. Who gets them contracts? Who gets paid for that stuff? You know, they just want the money rolling in. They love it because they sacrifice everything. You know, they sacrifice us and everything. So just let's have a little quick listen here. For people that don't know too much about the war, well, the Second World War, and, you know, just want a little bit of info in it. It's just really nothing to do with reptilians or anything like that. It's just our history is false on the World War II thing. And, you know, I keep on telling my friends and they keep on bringing another person to have a go, and unfortunately they're wrong all the time. But anyhow, let's listen.
On the 6th of June 1944,
Right, the 6th of June, 1944. This is D-Day, people. This is now when the Allied forces left the south coast of England and invaded Calais. Calais, Normandy. And the 5 beaches, Omaha, Juno, Gold, Sword, and something other. Anyhow, so lots of people died, but pay attention to the date, the 6th of June. And what time was the operation launched? At 6 a.m. in the morning. So, do you think that's a coincidence, people, of all the time? Don't forget this, and they'll give you the baloney about, oh, there was a storm here and the weather pattern and we just had this window of opportunity. No, they waited for that right time, at that right hour, of that right day, of that right month. It was all planned and engineered. Got to remember, our own governments terrorise us, the people. We drop bombs on each other, on houses. Where's the military? People, please wake up. Be critical. You know, they're dropping bombs on houses with women and children in. And this guy that's coming up, you know, he kind of riles me a little bit because, you know, they bang on about morale being broken. If the morale's broken, they don't want to go on fighting. Go on fighting. We're talking about terrace houses here with families in. They're poor people. You know, they've never picked up a knife or a gun in their lives. They don't want to go on fighting. It's all baloney. Again, it's false disinformation dripped down by the elite fat cats. And unfortunately, there's too many nice people that just buy it. And I'm afraid, you know, I feel so sorry for so many people in the forces. You know, what we need to do is really just put the weapons down. No army. No army, no wars. It's really simple, isn't it? But you've got to remember the elite. They own all the armaments industry, all the factories. You imagine if all of a sudden there was no warfare, the world was in peace, and then billions of dollars stopped rolling in. Do you think they would really allow that to happen? Do you? Not on your Nelly. They would not allow it. That is why everything's orchestrated. And what they've done throughout time is tried different wars, and they've tried different ways. And what they have now, this war on terrorism, is really the war on its own people, the war on us. Because there is no face to terror, there is no uniform to terror, and it's the war that never ends, which means it's the billions that never end keep rolling in. And as long as people keep on letting off bombs, the money will keep on rolling in and we'll keep on giving this baloney. So you've got to remember, people, that a poor person doesn't want to put on a vest full of dynamite and go into a marketplace in Africa and blow up the oranges and bananas along with women, children, old men and women. If they have a problem with their political situation, their life, if it's a hardship of one, well, then surely they would take their frustrations out at the root cause of why their life was difficult. Not go into the marketplace and attack the bananas. I mean, come on, wake up, people. Start tapping your head. Be critical thinking about these things. So when we see bombs going off all over the place in restaurants and bars and all that, it's just like the generals just dropping bombs on Coventry, on London, on Liverpool, Berlin, you know, Dresden, all these sacrificial dates and just horrendous, you know, human sacrifice by the people. And then, of course, they get all the contracts to rebuild all these cities. You know, they love it. They get to sacrifice us, and it's still going on today, people. They love it. Absolutely love it. The whole French thing, unfortunately, the byproduct of it is people do get hurt. But, you know, they're brainwashed, these people are letting off these things, or, you know, it's, you know, some sort of organisation in some sort of department. But you cannot trust your governments, people. then they're not there for you or I. Don't, here in the UK, remember, we never voted David Cameron in. His party put him as leader, and then we had the choice of the carrot or the carrot. And what did we get? The carrot. So basically, we vote the party in after the party put the leader there. And you've got to understand who pulls all the strings of the party. And so it doesn't matter if you're left, right, blue, red. It really doesn't matter, people. You're still going to get a carrot. So, you know, regarding all this stuff, what we have today correlates directly to this stuff yesterday. And I don't mean yesterday, I mean yesteryear, where so many people, I mean, you've got to understand that the spiritual world, the evil that plagues us, the conscious negative energy of this conflict, somehow they were eating it up. They loved it. They loved the misery. We've got to be very careful, people, and very vigilant that it doesn't come again, because we're very close to it. So let's just move it on a bit. I've just waffled a little bit there. Sorry.
D-Day. 150,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy.
So there you go. 150,000 men. They waited for the 6th of the 6th of the 6th of the 6th hour of the 6th day of the 6th month. No coincidence, people, that it's the number of the beast, because it was the beast that gave the command. And I'm talking about the Jesuits again, of course. And it was them that gave the command to the generals on the 6th of the 6th of the 6th. All satanic people, and they wanted to sacrifice as many of them 150,000 people as possible. Don't forget, at this stage of the war, there was hardly any Luftwaffe. The only Luftwaffe was defending themselves from the Red Army attacking from the other direction. We had total air supremacy. And where were the planes? And what would the professionals say? They'll say, oh, well, we didn't want to give it away. Give it away? Give what away? That the battleships are firing on the beaches. Well, beyond the beaches, you know, trying to hit the guns. Give what away, people? It's rubbish. Be critical thinking. It's a lie. Our bombers should have been there taking out all the guns. So all these are good American, Canadian, British, Aussies, and the rest of the good-hearted people attacking other brainwashed people, you know, and everybody dying. Well, the generals and the people in the church, they love it. They lick their lips at it. Somehow they're able to, you know, capture that negative energy. They are. So this was satanic. It was 666, and they wanted as many people to die as possible. And it was a really sad loss of life on both sides, on all sides, you know, non-deserved. They should have put down the guns and gone home. And anybody that in government that doesn't do what they say, they should be kicked out of office within 6 months. You know, actions and words, they don't correlate, people. They keep on saying about peace and goodwill, and everyone, you see the baloney that's going on, everyone holding hands and all this. They're all buying into it. All buying into it. And it's our own governments, people, that are attacking us, I'm afraid. And, yeah, I hope they don't come knocking at my door, but... But I don't see why they should. I mean, you know, they should know what's going on, really. And there's a lot of people saying a lot worse than I am. But this is the truth, people. This was a sacrificial event, I'm afraid to say. And of course, we had the air supremacy and we didn't use it to protect these boys. No, we just let them go to the slaughter. To them 50 cows, you know, caliber machine guns of the Germans, you know. Oh, horrendous, taking off heads and everything. You know, this is what they wanted. They wanted that ocean red with blood. I can see them now, you know, just lapping it up. Anyhow, beg my pardon, please. I do get a little bit, you know, I'm bewildered really why so many people would want so much and to hurt so many. I just don't understand it. at all. So let's just move on.
The biggest invasion in history. In just 24 hours, they smashed through the German defences and claimed a toehold in Nazi-occupied Europe.
Now, that was 24 hours without air support. And what they're not telling you is one of the American beaches, there was unfortunately a right old mess there with the tanks and everything. And, it wasn't the same for everybody on every beach that day, where they say that, everything was a foothold. It took some people a little bit longer than others to get a foothold in that particular area of Normandy.
Hitler demanded a rapid response.
You see, I've got to, if you don't mind, I've just got to mention this because we're talking about the Normandy invasion, of course. So you've got to understand that Normandy invasion came after the retreat from Dunkirk, where the British and all its rest of its empire, I should imagine. What do they call it? Begins with C. Anyhow, so the rest of the empire, basically, we had to sit on the beaches for days waiting for the very good people of England and the French to give us their little ships and come and pick up the boys, as many as they could, as often as they could, risking their own lives, where they were being strafed by Messerschmitts and Stuckers and boys on the beach just being, it was a turkey shoot for them, just being blown to pieces. Where were our planes then? No cover, no constant cover or anything. Again, we left France with our tail between our legs, people. We had to leave everything in France. In Dunkirk, the roads were littered with all our army, and basically we escaped with our tail between our legs, 300 and something thousand men that were either mentally damaged, physically damaged, or just needed respite. But basically, we, the English, we were in no condition at that very time to fight. What troops we had were in Africa and different places, as in Malaysia and Singapore. And basically, we had Dad's army. And we've all heard the programme, haven't we? Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler? And it's very true. Because you've really, people, I'm going to tell you something now that I don't know if you understand or not. That when we retreated to England from Dunkirk, we escaped by the skin of our teeth, and we left everything there, and we destroyed everything on the retreat. And there was a few brave boys that covered our retreat, and of course the Germans were blowing us up day and night on the beaches, while the little boats and as many boats as possible could come over at a risk to themselves. I'm sorry, I know I'm repeating that, but you've got to. Hitler's army was like an iron fist, and it went through Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, all the Low Countries. Holland's Queen, the royal family, they said to the Germans, please come, please come, please don't touch anything that belongs to us, but please take the rest of the country, it is yours. And that's why the Dutch capitulated really easily. So the Germans straight in there, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, they went through it like knife through butter. The Tiger tanks, the Panther tanks, the infantry and the Luftwaffe worked as one, as an iron fist, and they knocked all that stood in their way, country after country after country. And when we retreated to Dunkirk, and then by the skin of our teeth back to England, we were in no position to fight. What forces we had were already out amongst the Commonwealth. We had Dad's army, men from the First World War with pitchforks. Comical? Yes. True? Absolutely. So Hitler standing there at Calais with his binoculars looking over at Dover, at the White Cliffs. He was ready to take the whole army across. In Holland, they had assembled all the barges. They had hundreds of thousands of men ready. They had the ships ready. They had everything ready to invade England, and England was ripe for the picking. Now, I'm English, so you've got to understand you can't be patriotic about history, about the truth. You've got to say it how it is. Our country at that time was broken. We had nothing. We had a dozen hurricanes that had to come back. A friend of mine says, yeah, we had the RAF. What I'm about to tell you is the reason what happened on the Battle of Britain. Because what happened was when Hitler was at Calais with his army, with his might, he had at that time 2,500 to 3,000 warplanes. He, as a strategist, had already conquered country after country. He knew an invasion would be by boat and by air, and he would have the protection of the Luftwaffe, of them up to 3,000 planes that would easily keep the RAF busy, and they would shoot anything in its sight that would stop the barges landing in the south coast of England. We would have been invaded. So you say, well, why didn't he? Well, because he was told. That's why. Because he was a puppet like they are today. Obama, Barry Soweto, David Cameron, it doesn't matter. John McCain, they're puppets. They come and they go and they play this game, people. A very evil, murderous game to us all. So, Hitler was told, no, don't go any further. And the reason why, because the war would have ended. And what does that mean? That means no more money, people, rolling in to the people building ships, making tents, shirts, ties, boots, socks, sandwiches, food, canteens, alcohol, sacks, book sacks, helmets, nets, the list is endless. The raw materials, then rebuilding. I mean, you've got to remember the war's got to continue. The billions have to keep on coming in. That's how Prescott Bush became as wealthy as he did. He, being president of IG Farthing, had this oil additive that he put to Standard Oil, Rockefeller's Standard Oil. Then Onassis ships then sailed it and then offloaded it to the Germans. And then they paid via the Swiss banks, people. So you've got to understand that if the war's over, that oil is no longer needed. People's at peace. So who's behind the curtain? It's the church. Don't forget the church is in every country, in every ear. It was the Jesuits that told Hitler, stop, go east. Because they knew the might of Russia, along with the winter, if they could split Hitler's army, they could prolong the war for as long as possible to keep the money coming in as long as possible. And did you notice what they did during the end of the war? They tried to obliterate, annihilate, destroy, level every single brick standing so they could just rebuild. Everything was lost, but they continued the bombing. They continued the murderous sacrifice. And I feel very, very sorry for the bomber boys. Because consciousness is a very powerful thing. And what they were told to do, they probably know in their hearts it wasn't right from either side. And I feel extremely, extremely sorry for them boys. So, the Jesuits, they told Hitler to go east, not to Britain, where he had everything ready to invade. There was nobody there to stop him. So, he went east. And then they split his army. Army Group North, Army Group Central, Army Group South, down to the Ukraine. And by splitting up this army, the Russians then were able to hold out while the big manufacturing industries got going and then produced, all the armaments, and just the war kept going for another 3 years, people. Another 5 years. This is 1940 we're talking about, or 41. I mean, this is before the Americans came in. And again, it's a very, very hurtful thing for me to say, but the Americans, again, were tricked into going to war. You've got to remember, in America, the mothers in Kansas didn't want their boys going to a foreign war on foreign soil to a place where they've never heard of, and then their son doesn't ever come back again alive. They don't understand it. This is World War I, people. So in the Second World War, the American people didn't have the heart for another world war. They didn't want it. They didn't want their boys going over there, not understanding what was going on and coming back in a black sack. They'd had enough of that. They'd had their fill. So this was a problem for America, and it was a problem for all the elite at the very top that own all these companies. So American elite had to change the American public's mind, its opinion. And I don't know what that shadow is there. And to do this, they had to create a problem and then to react in a solution or something like that. But basically, they attacked their own people. The government attacked their own people. And let me explain why to all our American friends that are listening. In Pearl Harbor, on the way there, the Americans, by the way of the British, had intercepted a coded message that the fleet was on the way to attack Pearl Harbor. Your government knew, like our government knew, way beforehand. So what did the American government do? Now I'm talking about facts now, people, and the truth. Now I'm only repeating what it actually says. So please don't, if anybody's got a problem, don't shout at me, please. It's not me. I'm just repeating. Not from any book, but just from what I've read over time. In Pearl Harbor, you took your 4 aircraft carriers out of the way and you put them in a place where you knew the Jap fleet wouldn't be looking, because you took them there without any escort, which is unheard of, to take 4 carriers out of Pearl Harbor and take it out to a place in the ocean where you know the Jap fleet wouldn't be looking. And you didn't have any escorts because all the battleships were in Battleship Row in Pearl Harbor. So your government allowed the Japs to attack your battleships, the Arizona, the Vegas, I think, and a few others. And, again, sad loss of life for all. So, but what happened was these battleships were sacrificed because America had the finest battleships rolling down the ramps as they were being bombed. They had the Iowa class battleships, the greatest ships ever floated. The Iowa, the Wisconsins, the Missouri, and the New Jersey. All of them still afloat, all of them museums, and a credit to the men that sailed them. And that's why they could bomb the battleships, because they were obsolete. They were going to be scrapped or sacrificed anyhow. So they left these World War I battleships in place so the Japs could bomb them, kill the American soldiers, sailors. And then, as Roosevelt then took his stand and he goes, "We live in a day of infamy." I mean, don't believe it, people. He is up to his neck, as they all are on either side of the pond. So the American people changed its opinion of the war, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of men signed up willy-nilly, volunteering to get back at the Japs for doing such a heinous thing. And it could have all been avoided. It could have all been avoided, but no, it was meant to have happened. So America entered the war, and the industry profits went up even more. Anyhow, I'm waffling on a little bit, but this is all truth. I don't know if you get it in the history books. Let's just listen a little bit more.
London was the target. Within a week of D-Day, he had pressed the first of his vengeance weapons into action.
See, V1s, V2s, they're just rockets that just land on anything. Normally houses with women and children in. No military installation. It was just sacrifice. Let's just throw bombs at each other. You've got to remember that, please remember, the police, they cannot protect us. If we're being burgled or invaded or anything like that, there's nothing we can do about it. They come after with a pen and paper. They're like social workers. Well, what happened? What got nicked? Where did they come in? Blah, blah, blah. All they're good at for is really pulling over motorists and giving them a ticket, because that's about all they're good for. And the rest of the services, and I know you are all good boys and girls out there, but the Navy, the Army and the Air Force, they're not there for your eye. There's nobody invading us. They're there to keep the war machine going, the industries. They're there to keep the elite businesses rolling, to keep the billions rolling in. There's no poor people killing poor people at all. Please be critical of thinking of all of this. So these V1s, V2 rockets just dropped on London or the south of England, willy-nilly, just killing innocent people. Had nothing to do with warfare, people.
The jet engines of the V1 flying bombs were timed to cut out over the city. Over an 80-day period, more than 6,000 people were killed and 1 million buildings wrecked or damaged.
There you go, you see. There you go. Great loss of life. They don't mention the injured, but look at the buildings. Obliterated. Who gets the contracts to build all this again? Put the gas mains in. The water pipes in, all of it, you see. It's just, this is elite business, people. War is a scam. It's elite business what you see here.
The philosophy was that if you could destroy the morale of a people, you would basically break their will to fight.
Listen to that rubbish. Dr. Tony Pollard, battlefield archaeologist. Tony, you're a disgrace. If you're just repeating and regurgitating everything, you need to go and get your chest waxed. You got something growing outside your jumper. But apart from that, break the will to people to fight. What is he talking about? He's talking about women and children and old men and ladies. None of them are willing to fight at all. They're poor people. They don't want to go to war. They've got hungry stomachs and cold bones. Blimey, they want to live in peace and happiness and have a good time and raise a family in peace and harmony. This baloney here, this, brainwashing, this brainwashing that he's just spieling out is a very naughty boy.
And so rather than going for the hard military targets, you go for the soft civilian targets. It's a very cruel and it's a very nasty way of making war. But they believed it might work.
You see, there's no words for it. He's basically said it right there for you. No military targets. He calls them soft targets, which means women, children, old men and women. Everybody's out fighting. And they said it, we'll try it. It might work. What a load of garbage. He shouldn't be employed. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's just spieling off false history. Disinformation, people. Don't listen to him. Anyhow, I've banged on enough. It is a passionate subject of mine. You probably, got that through how I've been expressing myself. But they do annoy me. So many people, so much loss of life. I could cry. And it's not being stopped. It's just being repeated again and again. What we're seeing today happened yesterday. Yesteryear, sorry. I don't know what the answer is, but it's the children. We've got to start telling them there's a different way and not believe in this garbage. Anyhow, if you have listened for the full 34 minutes, well, you're a credit. You are. You deserve a medal. And again, the gold, silver and bronze, that's a whole nother conversation that we'll have one day. But for now, this is the World War II thing I just wanted to get off my chest. So everybody keep yourselves well, look after each other, love your children, and yeah, let's teach them a better way, please, so we build a better world for the future all. Okay, all, thank you very much for tuning in. Until we speak next time, adios.